Welcome to Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast. I am your host, Dave West, codename Phantom Troublemaker.
And I am your co-host, Noel Wood, codename Crapshoot.
And standing in for Legion Cub tonight, I am the sound engineer for Cold Slither, Cold Legion Cub.
Oh my goodness.
Cold Legion Cub. So, as we mentioned last time, this show is fun because it can kind of be whatever we need it to be, so we can do different segments, cover different things. And last time we had a ton of news. This month, we've got a decent bit of news and a little bit of follow-up as well. And I want to kick off by talking about the 112 Collective Destro from Mezco, because last time we just knew that it was happening, and we had like two pictures of it. One with the big smiling head that everybody but me seems to hate. And then another one that showed there was going to be a more classic styled head. Well, since then, the pre-order went live. I went in, I paid up front. It's ordered. It'll be here, in a year or however long it takes for Mezco to get these things into production. But we have all of the details on it. And I mean, I can't imagine a better Destro figure, but that's coming from me as somebody who collects 112 Collective figures. What did you guys think of this thing?
It's really nice. And there's the third head that they included in those other pictures. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to pick it up just because it's cost prohibitive, but yeah, it's a really, really nice looking piece. I can live with one bad head if it's got two others that that I like, and if I ever do decide to pick it up, I'll display it with one of the other ones.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, like you said, it's the perfect Destro figure. All the accessories are spot on. The detail in the accessories is more than what I thought it would be. And yeah, as much as I don't like when they use Destro's mask as skin, that smiling face still does it for some weird reason.
You're right.
It's the sculpt on it is so good.
Well, he's just this man.
And I can't think of a time when he looks so crazy.
Well, he's delighted to be selling you weapons. That to me,
okay.
That's what this head is. We've just made a great deal on things for you to blow people up with. And speaking of things to blow people up with, his loadout is incredible. He's got this huge pulse rifle with a couple of interchangeable magazines. He has his wrist rockets that actually have a firing wrist rocket. You can switch it out and with the flame effects and everything, which is something Mezco does really well. Two different holsters, a pistol with, of course, again, the clips. And then one of the last 112 figures I got was their Two-Face figure, and he came with this little suitcase bomb that you press the button and it lights up, and then there's a timer that actually pulses light. It's wild.
Oh, wow.
And Destro has like a level up of that with a suitcase that has two interchangeable pieces. It's got a light up computer panel on top, and then inside you can swap out parts for pistols or a sort of bomb and heavy armament type thing that lights up the same way that the Two-Face suitcase does. It looks great. My only thing here is Mezco has identified Destro as an agent of Cobra, and I really wish all of the insignias and stuff were Mars rather than Cobra, but I get it. That's the shorthand. That's what everybody does. I
think to the general public out there that just knows it from the cartoon, if it said Mars, they would be like, oh, he's Cobra. So you win, John Q. Public.
And it says Cobra issued briefcase. And then he actually comes with a submachine gun that can be assembled and just looks absolutely fantastic. So another masterpiece from Mezco. I'm super stoked. The three different heads. One is a stoic face, mouth's not open. The one that you could imagine is sort of the more traditional vintage face, the big smiling face, and then one that actually looks like more of an armored mask that I like quite a bit as well. And this one is what I think of as the Mezco style, because typically what they do with these figures is they'll take the best parts of movies and animation and comics and whatever and kind of put them together to create a figure that's an amalgamation of all of the best things. And that's, to me, what this mask is it looks like an armored mask, but it's definitely Destro. So I'm in on this, and we'll be reviewing it on the Needless Things YouTube channel once it does come out. Another thing that I wanted to cover just sort of really quickly, because there's not a lot of information, but I'm very interested in it. We talked about Eagle Force Returns, and everything is apparently shipping to the people who backed the original Kickstarter. And the Eagle Force Classic Kickstarter, which is what I wanted in the first place, is set to launch midsummer. And what this will be, is, from what I've seen, they haven't announced really anything about it yet other than it's happening. But it seems to me that they're going to be using the molds from Eagle Force Returns and just redecoing them to be the gold uniforms of the original Eagle Force, which is what I wanted in the first place. Nice. So I'm pretty stoked about this. Have you guys seen any of the shots of the return stuff that people have been getting?
Yeah, since our last, well, of what people have been getting yet, like in hand, no, but since our last episode, I've been going in and digging to see some of the production tests, like anything I can find online.
Yeah,
basically, and they're really well done. When this new Kickstarter goes, I'll be backing.
Yeah, I want at least a few of the figures in that classic style, and really, I kind of want to just go on Big Bad Toy Store and just order a couple from this run just to get them in hand and do a review and check them out in person. But I really want to just be patient because I know the other ones are coming.
I saw that they had plans for an old school cardboard base for the original Kickstarter that ended up not going through. And I wish they would do that, because that I really liked that piece.
And they might revisit that with this one. Now that they've proven themselves in their product, I'm very interested to see the response to this Kickstarter, because now we know they deliver. It may be eventually, but they deliver. And also they've already got all the tooling now. So it's just a matter of doing the figures in the new colors, I think. So we'll see. We'll be following along with that. And of course, we'll be covering it every month as it moves along. Real quick, I want to mention that the current Loot Crate that I think ends April 5th, maybe, has some 80s stuff in it. And one of those 80s stuffs is a little chibi Scarlet figure that, not to my tastes really, but if you're into cutesy little things that maybe there's only ever going to be one of, go check out Loot Crate and see what the Scarlet figure looks like.
Yeah, I made a note about that one too, because Loot Crates, I am not into any sort of like monthly crate like that.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see something unique and original G.I. Joe go into one of those. Although it's an odd combination of things that are going in that month, because it's like something to come. There's Fast and the Furious. I had it and now I've lost my notes. But yeah, there's a couple of other properties of stuff that's going in there. The theme for this April one is honor. So.
Well, and I like the way that NECA has been handling Loot Crate since they took it over, because they're also doing things that are specifically themed, like the Ninja Turtles figures, and they're not making you commit to buying 5 crates that you don't want. I just ordered the movie Ninja Turtles crate that comes with the Danny figure. Like, I like that they're doing stuff like that, and I'd be very interested to see. We're seeing all kinds of different G.I. Joe stuff, which we're going to be talking about a couple of new things in just a minute here. I'd be very interested to see what NECA did with G.I. Joe. Not that I need more people taking my money, but I just picture like a roadblock from NECA and how awesome that could look.
They would probably be easier to find than the classified figures.
They'd be easier to find, but also easier to break.
That's true.
So, Christian, you've got a little bit of follow-up with your Marauder order.
I do. So, when I placed the order, they immediately sent a reply out saying, "Hey, we're running 2 to 3 weeks behind on orders, but my part still managed to get in before this episode." So I could not be happier with the quality. If you have ever purchased figures from Boss Fight Studios, then it reminds me very much of that. So everything is modular. You can buy whole bodies, or you can buy just like the waist and the legs, just the torso, just a head. They're definitely meant for customizers. They have a crap ton of accessories on their site in the 1/18th scale. So I went ahead because I've never been satisfied with how awful the 25th anniversary version of CoverGirl looked. So went ahead and made my first G.I. Joe custom. It was a fun challenge. So the waist and the legs that I ordered with the torso that I ordered, you got good swivel side to side, but the way they sculpt the belt, I'm not a big ab crunch guy anyway. I kind of find it to be a useless joint in action figures, but you don't have really any up and down waist movement with the Marauder figures. That probably won't matter to a lot of people. But yeah, really, really happy with how she turned out. I put a couple pictures on Instagram. By the time this episode drops, I'm going to have quite a few more. But I had seen a gentleman on YouTube that used one of the Hasbro Indiana Jones figures, because finding a jacket at the 1/18th scale is quite hard. So something for any of you customizers out there that want to go check Marauders out, I will warn you now, as easily as it is to remove body parts, I don't think they ever intended for the shoulders, the top arms, to come removed from the torso.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I noticed because basically about 5 minutes after you sent pictures of what you got, I ordered some stuff for myself because I was like, wow, that looks great. My stuff's still on the way. Hopefully we'll cover it next episode. But I noticed when I was ordering that they just sell like forearms.
Oh, yeah.
But no upper arms.
Right. Taking her forearms out was super, super easy. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do like, the classics, Masters of the Universe classic figures. I'm going to boil her for a little while. I'll pop the arms out. No big deal, because that's, how I got the arms out of Indy.
Yeah.
And I boiled and boiled, and no matter how much I pulled, it just wanted to pull the plastic off of that arm joint. So there was absolutely no way of removing them without actually breaking the arm joint. And even after, because in order to make the Indiana Jones arms fit, I had to take a pin vise and do some drilling on her armholes to make them big enough. Even after I made them big enough for the Indiana Jones peg, I still could not get whatever the pegs that were on the end of her arm joint out, no matter how much I shook.
Right.
So she's part cover girl, part rattler from Snake Men. But I already have a list of more Joes. And here's the thing, when you go to their website, they know that people want their figures to make Joes out of. So they don't come out and say, this is Duke, this is, Alley Viper. But when you look at their figures that are pre-built, you can kind of see who is who, or when you're scrolling through the pages of the individual pieces, you can see like, oh, okay, I need this, this, and this if I want to build Clutch,
And the prices are very reasonable, I thought, because for just a couple bucks more than what you're going to buy one of the retro figures for now, you can put together your own figure of custom parts, colors, accessories, whatever, with a reasonable little, a backpack and a gun. And but it's a custom figure that you put together. And I bought enough to do sort of 2 figures to interchange different parts, and I'm really curious to see how everything shakes out.
And their shipping is incredibly cheap.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. What was it, like $5 or something?
$4 and some change.
Yeah.
It's like a Big Bad. It's like a flat rate.
Right.
And besides human figures, because their website can be a little tricky to navigate. Not gonna lie.
It's not the most
It's
intuitive
not
site
user friendly. You really need to go in and dig around in the menus to find everything, because it's not like they just have like men pieces, women's pieces. It's broken up by the different subgenres that they have. But they also do articulated canines as well. So
I totally forgot to look at those.
That's going to be part of my next order as well. A Law and Order.
See what you did there.
But yeah, I think if you wanted to do updated versions of the Joes, this would be a really good resource. If you're looking for diorama pieces, this is another great resource. Everything they do is in the 1/18th scale. They have, a section for like medical. They have, you can buy pop-up tents that are Joe size. So really great website. Looking forward to getting more from them. The quality is incredible. One last thing, because they do sell like all the pouches, holsters, all that you buy separately. Again, the prices are super cheap. Like it's change. You're spending
it's
30
less
cents
than $1 for like
for a pouch.
Whatever. Yeah.
But that does mean that if you aren't buying those things, your figure will have these like little, like 3mm holes in them, which is not a deal breaker for me.
I bought stuff to stick into the holes. It wasn't a big deal. I got they actually sell little plates that just make the holes flat. Like it literally just fills it literally just fills the hole in. So
yeah, I wanted CoverGirl to be able to fit into vehicles, so I didn't want a lot hanging off of her. But with my other figures, yeah, it'll be 90s pouch-tastic.
So for the listeners, you can find Christian's pictures at Legion Cub on Instagram, or Audible Interlude Podcast on Instagram. We'll for sure be reposting them. And then marauderinc.com is your resource for these really cool, customizable, sort of build your own character figures. My question, Noel, as somebody who has blown my mind with your creativity in Lego and the way that you have assembled things and done custom Lego entire dioramas and cities, are your creative juices tempted at all by the idea of sort of putting together your own little 1/18 scale figures?
Not really. It's just not my thing, because when I build Lego, I'm more now if they had like parts to build like dioramas and like battle stations and things like that, I'd be all for it. But no, my interest is mainly stems from my love of architecture as a child. So I like to build like structures and design buildings and things like that. So, but no, I mean, I think it's really cool that you have all of these options on here. And maybe me in another life that had a lot more time on his hands would be like really, really into this stuff. Like I've looked at the website a lot of times. I know when I go to G.I. Joe conventions, there are people who are, they love the Marauder Task Force stuff, and they swear by it.
It looks really cool. I'm excited to get mine and to check it out. And those guys are usually, I think they almost always have a panel or two at Joe Fest.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're usually there, which unfortunately I will not be able to make this year because my work schedule did not work out. But I'm halfway to being vaccinated. So,
yay!
Ooh, me too.
Listeners, listeners, stay tuned because we will, in all likelihood, have some Dragon Con news in the very near future for the Audible Interlude podcast. All right, moving on. Okay, I don't know how much information you guys were able to find about this. All I saw was the announcement that yojo.com and 3D Joe's are, and not the current yojo.com, the originators of yojo.com, are combining forces to create a website that is the ultimate database for G.I. Joe. We have been lamenting the sale of yojo.com for months, and as of yet, it has not totally pooped the bed yet.
But there are
things that are just straight up
something
missing.
else is missing.
There's
like
like
83 Destro disappeared the other
missing.
day.
I have yet to run into a severe issue with it, but it's falling apart.
Yeah.
So do you guys know anything more about this, or did we just all see the same announcement and that's all we have right now?
Yeah, I just saw the announcement. I haven't noticed any changes on 3D Joe's yet.
No, none of the changes are live yet, and it's actually it's a pretty large project because it's 3D Joe's, Joe Declassified, Yojo.com's originators, of course, RIHC guidebooks, and Joe Intel. So there's actually a lot of people that are collaborating on this project. If you're into G.I. Joe podcasts, you should check out the What's on Joe Mind podcast from March 12th. Carson Metaxas, who is the guy behind 3D Joe's, was on as a guest. He was actually one of the original hosts of that podcast too, and he went into some detail on it. We don't know a lot yet, but it's really exciting because obviously with what we do, we really rely on having a comprehensive G.I. Joe database.
Yeah.
And I think knowing Carson, because I know Carson very well, he is a very meticulous person, and I don't think this is going to be anything less than like stellar when it's all said and done.
Well, and speaking of needing a database, I made a wacky decision today that it is high time for me to restore my childhood Terrordrome. It is one of the only pieces, and I'm talking about only as in I've got like Destro and maybe one other figure from when I was a kid. Unfortunately, when I moved out of the house, all of my Joe stuff went up into the attic, and we all know what Georgia heat does to brittle ABS plastic. Over time, it was all just mangled, destroyed. Some of it was sold off. But a few years ago, my mom called me up and she said, David, one of the neighbors ended up with one of your toys, and I was wondering if you'd want it back. And I said, well, yeah, sure. What is it? And she said, well, I think it's the Millennium Falcon. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be great to have my childhood Kenner Millennium Falcon back. That would be awesome, because all of that stuff, as I said, it all went up into the attic and was just warped and ruined. So my parents come to visit, and she brings out this Millennium Falcon, and it's the Cobra Terrordrome. Because, she's a lady with not a whole lot of interest in G.I. Joe, and maybe not the best recollection of every little thing about Star Wars. So it's the Terrordrome. It's minus some pieces, but more intact than some that I've seen. And I brought it out, and me and my son sat down and we took a look at it, and we were like, you know what? We need to fix this up. There's enough here that it's worth refurbishing this one as opposed to just trying to get a new one in my quest to rebuild my collection. And then I start looking at eBay, which granted, eBay is not your best resource, but you can get a decent idea of what things are selling for. And you guys, some of these parts, holy cow.
Yeah.
I don't know if after I sent you the message, you were just out of curiosity, maybe you went and took a look, or maybe you already know. Like, not the Canon turrets, those are relatively inexpensive, but the platforms for the turrets are like $150 for one.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Parts like that where clips break off a lot and things like that, they're going to, I mean, it's very rare to find one intact. So,
right. And
you're going to expect to pay a little bit.
That's
and I didn't mention this when you sent it to us. I just sent you the one YouTube link. But if you're only caring about like restoring it for yourself and it doesn't have to be original pieces.
Oh yeah, if I get repro stuff, that's fine. I don't care.
Yeah, a while back, when I was looking for some new 3D printed diorama pieces, I was like, well, let me see what 3D stuff out there are people doing for G.I. Joe, and you can find quite a bit for the Terradrome. Just go on Shapeways, type in G.I. Joe. You're going to be scrolling through a lot of pages, but I was like, oh, that's really cool to see that. If somebody finds one at a garage sale, they're going to be able to have means of putting it back together.
My only concern with the reproduction stuff, well, and honestly, it's a concern with buying stuff as well, because I learned this as I bought a mostly intact killer whale a couple years ago at Joe Fest. But what I have learned is that my killer whale rarely went outside, whatever, but somebody else's killer whale might have been outside all the time or might have been in different heat, and the plastics will be different colors. So your cannons won't match.
I just recently had this with my Cobra bunker.
Oh my gosh.
Unfortunately, it took a fall because I was like, I'm finally going to do some pictures with it. And one of the panels, because it's brittle plastic, one of the panels broke. And I went on eBay and I found one super cheap. And it showed up and it is
completely different.
A totally different shade of blue.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? Cobra, it makes sense. They're cheap.
Yeah, it's wild and I didn't realize it at first when I was putting the stuff on the killer whale together, but then I was like, wait a minute, why is this cannon like way darker than everything else? And I started looking at all of the pieces, and I realized the guy I bought it from probably piecemealed some of it together too, which, whatever, that's what I would have ended up doing anyway. So with this Terradrome, I'm probably going to run into the same thing where I'm going to get, not that I think a lot of Terradromes probably sat outside in the sun for very long, but when I get my platforms for the guns, what if they're a little bit different shade of blue than the ones I've already got?
Yeah.
This is gonna be a tricky project, but I'm
stuff
excited
like that.
about
Also,
it.
if you don't mind it looking a little bit more weathered and look like it was actually in a battle at some point in time, a little different shade every now and then doesn't bother me.
The other thing I had to consider is the launch platform for the Firebat in mine is broken. It's broken away from the lever. So I went and started looking at what's out there. And you can buy the whole base with the cylinder in the middle and that platform for about $75. But then I had to sort of think, well, how much of mine do I want to keep versus like, I don't want to replace that whole base because then I'm losing a big portion of it being mine. Because part of what's special about this to me is that it's the one I had as a kid. So I want to keep as much of that intact as possible. So Christian, the video you sent about taking the top off and taking the base apart is going to be important because I'm going to have to replace that platform because that is only about $10. I already ordered one today. So that's on the way, but it's going to be a process of carefully taking everything apart, not breaking any of the tabs or, oh man, it's going to be something.
Yeah. Gentle hands.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's my project for a while. And since I mentioned that, actually, I want to mention a few days after our last episode aired, does your toy sense ever tingle? Do you ever get the feeling like, man, like you're on the way home from work and you're like, man, I need to run in that Walmart And it just so happens that you run into that Walmart and they have some new stuff that you wanted. And you're like, my toy sense was tingling. It happens to me from time to time. And a few days after our last episode went out, my toy sense tingled. And I felt like I needed to visit this local, it's not a thrift store, it's not an antique store, but it's a vintage goods store called Antique Thriftique.
I know exactly where it is, and I am so jealous.
Well, my toy sense tingled. I got in the car. I went down the road and asked the guy, because I've been in there and talked to him before. I actually wrote an article about the store on the needlessthingspodcast.com a couple years ago. And I said, I'm just looking for vintage G.I. Joes. And he said, you mean the big ones? And I was like, nah, the little ones that came out in the 80s. He was like, oh, I've got a ton of those. Really? So he brings me over to this bin, and he has 4-gallon Ziploc bags packed with 80s and 90s, I found out, G.I. Joes. $19 a piece. And I said, I will take all of these. And he was like, okay. So I told him about me and my son are refurbishing Joes. We're putting a collection together, trying to rebuild my collection. And he said, I know that these sell on eBay for more than this. Like this guy right here, you can get like $15 for him. And he's pointing at a figure that I know darn well you could get $80-$85 for, but obviously I'm not going to mention that. But he said, I just don't have the time for this. I got so much other stuff in this store. This isn't my bag. So if you want them, take them. And he threw in an old school wooden footlocker too, which I thought was really cool. So I got these home. We opened them up. Got about 39 figures, most of them complete with their accessories. Tons of extra accessories that don't go with any of these figures, but got them all cleaned up, got them in the collection, broke some down, put them in bags, set them aside. I don't know yet what I'm going to do with the extras I've got, but I can't bring myself to sell them for some reason. Like,
they have a great story attached to them.
Yeah, those and the Wilson Hall and just stuff I've gotten since then. Like a lot of times when you need a piece and you go on eBay, it's cheaper to just go ahead and buy the whole figure with the accessories. Like I needed Freedom. You guys know I've been looking for Freedom for months, and you just can't.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we've all been looking for Freedom for over a year now. But you cannot find Freedom with his talons attached. They're all broken off. And I saw a listing for an incomplete Spirit with an unbroken Freedom. And I was like, you know what? I'll bid this for it. And if I get it, I'll be doing all right. And I got it for my max price. Well, no less than my max price, actually. So now I've got Freedom, but I've got an extra Spirit. And there have been a few instances like that where I've ended up with like a whole extra figure that I don't even need. So now I've just got this stockpile of extra Joes that I can't bear to get rid of, because after losing that childhood collection, I can't ever get rid of G.I. Joes again. I just can't. So I guess I've got backups now for when their thumbs break off or something.
Never a bad thing to have. I get the same way when if I'm looking for like a specific accessory, sometimes I'll just find a complete figure online and realize when I weigh this out, it's probably a better deal for me just to buy this figure complete.
Well,
and you're just gonna have you can have the figure and sell it later if you want to.
Well, and sometimes the figure you get ends up being in better shape.
Yep.
Or slightly different from yours, and you wouldn't even have realized that. Because that's what happened with the Zartan that I got just for his pistol. The one that came in, I now have one Zartan with all the stickers in his armor and one Zartan without the stickers in his armor. So, like, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a Copperhead with, I didn't even know, I found this out. They're two different Copperheads. We were talking about the Lifeline and the differences in the Airborns we've talked about. Well, there's one Copperhead that has green gloves, green armbands, and the green on the top of his helmet. And then there's another one that all of that is the dark turquoise that matches the rest of the figure. Doesn't even have those green highlights. When I was a kid, I had the green highlight one. I didn't even know about the one that didn't have the green on his helmet. And now I've got both of those. So like it's fun just saying, you know what? I'll just take the whole thing. Send it. We'll see what we get.
Yeah.
All right. More news, believe it or not. Noel, do you want to tell us about the Mini-Mates?
Yeah, so we mentioned last month that the Mini-Mates are coming. They had announced them, but we didn't have any details on it, except that there were G.I. Joe Mini-Mates. There were going to be 4 of them. We got the character assortment earlier this month, or I guess by the time you're hearing it last month. Not surprising, it's Snake Eyes, Scarlet, Storm Shadow, and Cobra Commander. It's going to be exclusively available to retailers that participate in Free Comic Book Day 2021. So if your local comic book shop is participating, then you'll be able to acquire those figures there. I believe it's up for pre-sale right now for $29.99 for the 4-pack on BigBadToyStore.com. So if you don't want to, wait until then you can go ahead and put that order in for it now. But yeah, they're your standard Mini-Mates, 2-inch figures, 14 points of articulation, interchangeable parts and accessories. And they all come on their individual blister cards. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. For that price, I'll probably get my hands on them just because that's a really neat little G.I. Joe accessory there.
Yeah, I'm at a point now where anything that's sort of new and novel G.I. Joe that pops out that's reasonably affordable, I'm going to grab it because there's so much stuff that I've let slip through my fingers over the years because I was like, oh, I'm not really interested in that, or oh, that's a little too much, and I end up regretting it down the road. And I'm like, man, I really wish I'd gotten that. And those Pop Culture Shock statues are one of those things. I'm so glad I got the ones I got. And now Serpentor, Destro, and Baroness, I think, are out. And I got to go track them down, man, because that Sunbow style, they look so good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else we got. Oh, you also sent a link to some G.I. Joe domes. That's domes with a Z.
As if Vince Russo was booking this.
So these are neat little toys. Tons and tons and tons of other brands have had domes released. Matter of fact, speaking of wrestling, WWE has domes as well. They're basically little capsule toys, but I don't think they come out of the capsules.
No, they stack, but I don't think they are removable from the capsules.
But they're just neat little stylized, like sort of cartoony looking depictions of Joe characters. And again, anything G.I. Joe on the shelves is good.
And these are, if you're not a fan of blind bag figures, you're not going to like this because there's 7, including a rare Snake Supreme variant of Cobra Commander. But you're going to have to just take your chance or buy them on the aftermarket if you,
But
if you're looking for specific figures.
The good thing about the blind bag is kids love blind bag stuff.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, these just by virtue of being that will sell to kids. So, more Joe out there, just good news. I wanted to bring up an article that I happened across last night. It's on melmagazine.com, and it has 3 military experts analyzing the efficacy of certain G.I. Joe vehicles and whatnot.
I think you mispronounced ruining the fun of G.I. Joe vehicles and accessories.
Well, and here's the thing. If you get through the whole article, you see that these guys have an appreciation for G.I. Joe. They're just having fun with the ridiculousness, because if you're too sensitive about G.I. Joe, this article is not for you. But if you can take a little fun being poked at the fact that people carry around anti-aircraft missiles and launch them from their backs, which I can. I need the more fantastical elements of G.I. Joe, but I also recognize how preposterous some of them are. So this article kind of like takes the wind out of some things, and I thought it was really fun, and I think it sums it up. I'm just going to read this one line because it cracked me up when I read it. And I highly recommend, if you can have a sense of humor about Real American Hero, check this article out. This stuff is all designed to make kids say, that looks cool. Because if you actually made a line of toys that look like real army guys, they'd all just look the same. In the first set in 1982, they all did kind of look the same. Then they realized we got to make each guy look more individualistic, which I'm sure is great from a marketing standpoint, but I wouldn't want to be the G.I. Joe Ordnance Logistics guy having to remember, oh, this guy carries this kind of gun, so I have to order this ammo. This guy needs food for his parrot and gunpowder for his pirate pistol. Like, that's awesome. And clearly this guy is not, he's having fun. You know, it's just a fun look at some of the more ridiculous vehicles and stuff from Real American Hero. And I had, like I said, if you've got a sense of humor about that stuff, it's worth reading. I enjoyed it. And that is,
I enjoyed it. And
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I enjoyed it. I've seen similar articles like this that were not written by people who were in the military that asserted stupid things like that the bridge layer was a preposterous vehicle,
right.
We all know that's a realistic military vehicle. So it was good to see that actually coming from people who had a military background. So, you know, they weren't just poking fun of things because they were ignorant to them. They actually had a knowledge of the subject.
Yeah, these guys are actually military experts. And this is, again, melmagazine.com. And if you do a search for G.I. Joe, you'll find the article. It's a fun read. And then finally, I want to put over the Needless Things YouTube channel. I did an unboxing of the Invader and also included pictures of the Invader with the decals from the original Ballistic Battle Ball on it. And I think it looks really, really cool. Much better than the Invader stickers anyway. It was a fun project. And Christian, your work with older silly vehicles definitely sort of inspired me on that one. Actually, I saw one the other day that I almost sent you a link to eBay because I saw it was some 90s vehicle and I was like, ooh, this would look really good if it was just Cobra Blue. But I'm always wary of sending people links to things that will make them spend money.
I have two that I'm slowly working on. I'm still trying to figure out the colors. So no announcements yet. Once I know the colors, hopefully by next podcast, I'll have an update. But I when you told us you got the Invader, I was excited as much as I did. The neon, the robotics day glow green, like it's just so over the top in photos. And normally that would be something that I would hate, but I'm just drawn to it. And your video, seeing some like it in someone's hands, I was like, I'm going to have to eventually get one of those and throw my old pogo to the curb.
It looks cool. Those colors
looks as outlandish as that vehicle should be.
Yes. It was almost a mistake making that vehicle. And don't get me wrong, I love the original Pogo, but it was almost a mistake making that vehicle in more subdued colors. It cries out for more radical colors.
Absolutely. I thought I was going to watch your video and just be like shaking my head. Like I cannot, even at the price he got it, I cannot believe he spent money on that. And the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, why have I not bought this yet?
It's fun, man. It's a fun piece. And that's another thing about, to really quickly go back to the Terrordrome, is I really need to wait until I can go back to toy conventions, because that's the place to get things like the Invader, like your Terrordrome pieces. eBay is not your best resource, but until things get a little more back to normal, you know, we're not going to have our best resources readily available as it once was. I think that pretty much wraps up the open for this month. So it is time to move on to our next segment. Welcome to a sort of new segment thing that we're doing here on the show, where for now we're calling it Deployment, where we are basically fantasy booking a toy line that might not ever be. We have gotten really excited about the concept of a true G.I. Joe retro line. Super 7 has access to certain portions of the G.I. Joe license, or certain things that they can make that are G.I. Joe. And conversationally, we have really taken to the idea of Super 7 releasing original O-ring style figures. Where the idea of this being possible came from is the fact that Super 7 released a line of vintage Masters of the Universe figures in that original 5-inch squatty muscular style. They don't have to worry about the same things that Hasbro has to worry about. So the potential for Super 7 to do an actual line of O-ring figures, I think, is there. I have no information that it'll happen. I don't really honestly think that it will happen, but it's fun to speculate. So what we're going to do today is each of us are going to imagine what the first wave of 6 O-ring Super 7 retro G.I. Joe figures could be. And what we're basing that off of is figures that were never released in the original line from the animation and the comics. And the idea is not so much like the comic packs where they completely try to replicate the look of the animation or the comics, but they would be done in the true vintage style. So they would blend in with your original 80s Joes in a way that the comic packs didn't always do. So these would be characters from the cartoon and the comics, but they would be done in a style that blended with the original Real American Hero line. And I guess we'll just go around and each do our 6. Let's start with Christian. What did you come up with for this?
So you want all 6?
Yeah, well, I don't know. How do you guys want to do it? Do you want to do one at a time and go around? Or do you just want to drop?
I like the anticipation of thinking of what you guys are going to say next. So I kind of like the idea of let's do one 2 and go around.
2? Okay, do 2. Okay, drop your first 2 then.
Okay, so my first 2 are from the cartoon. So first would be Admiral Ledger from the Flag. He made multiple appearances, and I'm always happy to get more of the Beard Brigade. So I have people to cosplay. But he's an admiral with G.I. Joe. You should have a figure.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
My second one is a less known figure, and we'd have to change her story a little bit.
Okay.
And also keep in mind, I picked almost all of mine with the theory that Super 7 caters to collectors of niche.
Oh, and they do. 100%.
So Super 7 is likely to pull that background character and make them well.
I feel that if this were to really happen from Super 7, at least 2 of the 6 characters from this initial wave would be deep cuts that casual fans might not even know, because that's how they roll.
So I always appreciate that we need more female characters in the G.I. Joe toy line. So my second choice is Honolulu West.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
How did G.I. Joe have an adventure with a woman that can drive a big rig and her not end up a Joe by the end of it? So I think that after their adventure, she becomes an honorary Joe, and she is like cover girl, and she's out there driving tanks with the team. But she's got that cowboy motif.
Yeah.
So there's your counterpart for Wild Bill. So I yeah.
Well, and that's a perfect segue. So I'm going to go next, because my first choice is a Sunbow styled Wild Bill.
It was on my short list.
With the blue coveralls, the yellow vest, the dark glasses. We need that look for Wild Bill, because when I was a kid, I never understood why the Wild Bill that came with the Dragonfly was in this green and brown getup, which, don't get me wrong, that figure is awesome. But I want a Sunbow Wild Bill bad. So that's my number one pick. Technically, my number two pick was my number one pick, but when I thought of Wild Bill, it got me so excited, like visualizing what that would look like. I put him first. My number two pick, and you guys, come on, it's a gimme. Hector Ramirez.
I thought about it. I thought about it.
He would, and yeah, I know he always has his cameraman with him. And look, I'd buy a cameraman figure too, but Hector Ramirez would come with the microphone and with the camera, because you can get like any Tonka guy or whatever to hold that camera. But we need a Hector Ramirez figure, 100%.
Crossover.
Yes, absolutely.
So with him, I mean, Transformers, G.I. Joe, he's way out of scale for Jim, but still, like every Sunbow produced cartoon,
in Humanoids,
he was there.
In Humanoids as well. Absolutely. So yeah, we need that. Noel, what are your first two?
My first two, you can't have one without the other, and these are. This is a look that I always wanted back then. They're two of my favorite characters from all of G.I. Joe, and my wife and I do costume versions of these costumes. Flint and Lady J in their Sunbow outfits. Flint with the green shirt. Lady J with the separate trousers and shirt, and not the one-piece flight suit. I've always loved that look. To me, the figures, the figure versions pale in comparison to the way that they were depicted in the cartoon. So I've always wanted that. I know they did those later on in the 25th line, but they've never gotten a proper O-ring release in those colors.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, the 25th line did a lot of really cool Sunbow-oriented stuff. But when we were kids, and that was some of the magic of what Super 7 has done with the Masters of the Universe line, is they gave us so much stuff that's like, when I was a kid, this is what I wanted this to look like with their Filmation line. And that's the same kind of thing, is like, I want the Sunbow G.I. Joe stuff. I would love to see a lot of that. All right. Christian, what are your next two?
Okay, so I have to mark Hector out. So my next two, the first one, it's cliche. Everybody wanted him as an O-ring figure, but I got to go with Quinn, because he was such a huge part of those early issues of the Marvel G.I. Joe comic. My second choice is Zartan, but it's Zartan in his Cold Slither.
Oh, yes. Nice.
Because I didn't want to do any main characters as just the main characters. I'm still keeping with the niche of Sunbow. And that could give us a through line with each wave to entice people to buy in order to get the whole band. So you would want to start off with Zartan.
Here was my idea for Zartan, although yours is better. It was Sunbow Zartan, but instead of his hood, he had hair. I think that would almost be like a Comic-Con exclusive one or something, because it'd be so dumb it would have to have a gimmick to it for people to even want it. All right, my next two, and one of them is a little tough, but I think Super 7 would be willing to pull something like this off. So my third pick is a Fatal Fluffy. And my logic with this is it's going to have to be a bigger figure, but maybe they can either limit, like, it doesn't necessarily need the elbow and knee articulation. It can be a larger figure, still O-ring, but it would be packed 2 per case, because people are going to want to troop build this. So I think there are ways that they can cut cost a little bit on the figure in order to get a bigger figure in the line. And then my fourth pick is the Viper, who has come to vipe your windows.
Absolutely.
And he would come with the Fatal Fluffy would come with the whip, and the Viper would come with his bucket and his window wiper, obviously. Noel, what are your next two?
Well, since we're doing them in twos, I kind of feel like I have to group these because it works better.
Sure.
So I got to decide if I want to go with which two of the three, because there's really a trio that need to be released. But just to satisfy Christian's nightmares from back in October when we did the Halloween episode,
yes,
I'm going to have to do Snake Eyes and Shipwreck.
Yes,
in their musical disguise outfits.
Well, and of course, Snake Eyes has got to come with Timber, with the hat on or whatever it is,
and Shipwreck would come with Polly with his get up too. So you get the animal companions with both, but you have to. Snake Eyes dressed as Boy George is a must in any Sunbow themed collection.
Yes.
And I've seen customs of these figures. I've known people to do costumes of them at conventions, but I want to see him. Shipwreck with the saxophone. He has to have the saxophone.
It may not be a Christian pleaser, but it's a crowd pleaser. and let me just tell you what I have on my list: San Diego Comic-Con exclusive satin Shipwreck Snake Eyes Timber set in a van box set. So the box would be shaped like the van, and then you open it up and the figures are all inside. That was absolutely one of my picks. All right, let's see. Christian, what are your final two?
Okay, so I am sitting here torn because I had a couple of backups just in case somebody picked one of mine already. But number 5, you need an army builder. So I went with the Cobra Shock Troopers from the Mass Device.
Oh, yeah.
The Space Troopers. Right. I like the white armor, so they've not been done before. And I think, as much as I like you, Cobra Crazy Chef, my last pick would be, I don't remember the name of the episode, but there is the Island of Dr. Moreau themed G.I. Joe episode where where he is mutating people into animals. So I think every line also needs a good monster. So I would take one of the background monster animals. Frostbite as a killer whale, I don't think has good selling points, but one of the background like man wolf at monster type deals, that would be my last pick.
That's solid. No, I'd definitely go for like a Cobra werewolf. I'm down with that 100%. All right. So my final pick, one is a no-brainer because I mentioned it, I think, on the very first episode we ever recorded, and that's Dr. Venom. I want a Dr. Venom figure very badly, not badly enough to pay what they want for the convention exclusive one, or G.I. Joe Club one, or whatever it was. But I want a good O-ring Dr. Venom figure, and I'd be very interested to see how they did a lab coat in that style. And then my second one is a cheat because it's more of a box set, but I love it so much. If you remember the episode Red Rocket's Glare, I want Roadblock and Rakondo in their Hawaiian shirts with the Jeep. It's not a vamp. It's just a regular old military Jeep, but they're going on vacation to visit Roadblock's aunt and uncle. So I want Roadblock and Rakondo in their vacation gear with just this Jeep. And maybe there could be like a cardboard backdrop of the Red Rocket restaurant. So That's maybe overreaching a little bit, but I watched that episode with this project in mind, and I was like, that would be awesome. Marvin in a Hawaiian shirt. Come on.
Love it.
All right, Noel. Wrap it up. What you got?
I wrote down so many that so I got to figure out how I'm going to fill it out. Now, since I've done all Joes, I think I need to turn, and my last two need to be the opposition. So I thought about just doing the regular Marvel or the regular Sunbow Cobra Trooper, but I decided I want to go with the off-duty Cobra Trooper wearing the white tank top and the shorts.
Yes.
But still with the balaclava and the helmet on.
Yes.
One of my friends cosplayed that back at JoeCon, 2011 when they were here at Disney.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
That's great.
So yeah, I thought just rather than just having one standard trooper in there, we'll do that when we can do the troop builders in another line as well.
Yeah.
And for my last one, I'm actually going to depart from Sunbow because I want the Baroness in her original blue decor from Marvel Comics, the way that she was originally drawn before she had a figure made, with the kind of the green tinted sunglasses and just the blue bodysuit with no Cobra emblem. You got to do it like she originally had it. So
man, you say that, and at first I was like cringing worse than Snake Eyes Boy George. But thinking that we're doing these in the old school O-ring figures, that could work. Because her 25th in the blue, I put up there with CoverGirl. It's a horrible figure. But if she had the proportions of the original Baroness figure,
it would look cool.
Love
to have it. All right, so now what we've got to do is make the tough call. We each get to choose 2 of our picks to make this 6-figure wave. So Christian, call your picks down to 2.
If I could only pick 2 from my list, I'm going with Honolulu West and Cold Slither Zartan.
Good picks.
I am going with, oh gosh, I want my Fatal Fluffy so bad, but I got to go with Hector Ramirez and Dr. Venom.
Excellent. I was hoping you were going to say Hector. That's why I didn't.
He's a must-have.
I got to go. It's kind of boring because they are obviously the major characters, but Flint and Lady J and those original Sunbow colors.
But you got to have those anchors,
collection.
Man. You got
that's what I thought too. You can't have too many obscure figures because you got to hook in somebody who's got a little bit, of just going after the nostalgia factor.
And of course,
my wave is the one that you have to have if you're doing subscription, and you make everybody buy before you tell them, because they're going to be like, "Who? What?"
You're right. The good news, though, is this is our show, so we get to make the rules. So we still get our San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Satin Shipwreck Snake Eyes Timber in the Van box set. Yes. So we get that as well.
So I don't have to put those on as my picks because they're going to come out anyway.
So you're covered. So that was fun. Like as I said, I don't think Super 7 is really doing this, but if
you're listening, Super 7,
man,
you have at least wink, 3 wink. Customers right here.
Yeah, 3 customers. What more 3. Do you need? All right, let's move on to the long-awaited newest installment of Springfield Showdown, which has a very specific and challenging theme.
Welcome to a special edition of the Springfield Showdown, Slaughter or Nodder. We have, of course, a very eclectic group of three that do this podcast every month, and sometimes we differ on some things. So tonight, we're going to discuss the validity of Sergeant Slaughter into the world of G.I. Joe. So, to start off tonight, we're going to have Christian arguing against Sergeant Slaughter.
Okay, look, I know he's popular. I know a lot of you people out there are fans of Sergeant Slaughter. Even going back to as a kid, I can't stand him. The idea of a drill instructor for G.I. Joe, I do like. However, Sergeant Slaughter has all of the boisterous, loud personality that I feel like the writers had to over exaggerate on his skills to match that. If I may, for a moment, use the Sentai as an example. The red leader of a Sentai group is good in all things, but excels in none. Sergeant Slaughter, when you read his file card, there is nothing Sergeant Slaughter can't do. He can pilot every vehicle. He can be in the middle of a battle and be like, oh my gosh, that's a new ship that Cobra just built. Look, boom, 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 boom. I can drive it. I can kill you. But why does he need a vehicle? He can take on bats with their flamethrowers, their lasers, wearing nothing but a tank top and not get cut or scratched because apparently wrestling skin, besides already looking like leather, is armor. So he has what I call the Wolverine problem. When Marvel Comics introduces someone in as a villain in the X-Men, if they want you to know, oh my gosh, take this character seriously, this character is a bad you know what, he beats Wolverine. There's a classic issue of X-Men where Gambit beats Wolverine in a duel, and all the fandom went, oh my gosh, Gambit's the greatest thing since sliced bread. That's Sergeant Slaughter. He never is in any danger. There's never any threat. And to me, it just kind of takes away from the rest of the Joes who should specialize in a skill. You know, if he wants to be this strong bare knuckle brawler, that's great. But I want to see him get taken down a peg or two every now and then so that we know when he goes into battle, he's just as much at risk as everybody else. What I cannot ever forgive him for, Slaughter's Marauders. If he picked the colors to unify his team, he should be dishonorably discharged. No benefits whatsoever. That blue, yellow, brown could possibly work for some characters for sure. But when low light is a sniper. How is a sniper hiding and taking you out? And blue is my favorite color. But come on. And we already discussed last episode the horrificness of Slaughter's Marauder Barbecue. And if he is so untouchable, why does he need this team? Sergeant Slaughter is getting bombs dropped on him, and the way they write him in the cartoon, he's walking out and then yelling at the Joes and calling them maggots. And so as far as I'm concerned, no, you should have gone the way of the Rocky Balboa and just been a urban legend in Jodom.
Wow. That is quite a list of negatives that have been presented.
I've had a whole life to dwell on this.
Dave, you have your work cut out for you. So I'm going to need you now to defend the honor of Sergeant Slaughter here.
Oh, and defend it I will. And what's so awesome is that Christian's argument has made half of my points for me. Sergeant Slaughter is awesome and powerful and a leader for the Joes. He's somebody that all of the Joes can look up to as a role model, that they can follow his example of greatness and invincibility. Look at Sarge wading into battle. He's unstoppable. What a paragon of virtue for us to look up to. And beyond that, Sergeant Slaughter, the actual person, is a credible celebrity, or was a credible celebrity personality that brought value and excitement to G.I. Joe. At the time when his figure was released, WWF was huge, and Sergeant Slaughter was a known factor in the WWF. So he was a personality that could come in and enhance what G.I. Joe had to offer. And two, unlike some other celebrities like Judd Nelson, who was too cool to continue doing the voice in his cartoon, Sergeant Slaughter would voice himself in the movie and in the animated series. He voiced Sergeant Slaughter for all of the characters' appearances in the G.I. Joe animation, again, adding value and integrity to the product. He had a great, unique look that no other G.I. Joes could emulate. His black tank top, whether it had USA across the front in red, white, and blue letters or not, was a powerful icon of invincibility and American spirit. His cool hat that was a little bit unlike anybody else's signified that he was a drill instructor and had an almost Indiana Jones-like quality, and that he would never leave it behind after a battle. He might punch a giant worm man in the face and scrap to the ground, but he was always going to bring his trusty hat back to G.I. Joe headquarters with him. And finally, I'd just like to throw out there that if anybody has the LJN style Sergeant Slaughter action figure that was released, please hit me up, because that is one of the true holy grails of action figure collecting I would like to have. I love Sergeant Slaughter. I've met the man twice in my life, and he's been an absolute peach both times. He even pointed it out to me. I didn't know this. I have the San Diego Comic-Con 25th anniversary style Sergeant Slaughter action figure that I've had for years. And when I brought it to him to sign, he said, "Oh, you don't sign this one on the front. If you flip it over, there's actually a spot on the back here for me to sign." And it's sure enough on the back, because he was at the Comic-Con where this figure was, and Hasbro designed the card back with a spot for his signature. So that's where he signed it for me.
Hasbro designed it on the back, so it couldn't be.
Well, it's part of the file card. So it makes sense when you see it. But my point is, not only is Sergeant Slaughter a powerful, motivating force for the Joe team, but the actual guy is a great person, well worth of the adoration of having multiple action figures based on him. But I will concede you this point, Christian. I will give you this point, Legion Cub. The Marauders are ugly as heck and should be banished from toy shelves for all eternity. And that's where I'm resting on Slaughter or Nutter.
Wow. That was some passion in that response.
I love Sergeant Slaughter.
If you have any rebuttals, I'll give you a brief moment to throw those in.
I only have one rebuttal. Since he's bringing in Sergeant Slaughter, the real man, not the Joe character.
Don't you dare bring up any stolen valor nonsense.
But when he went back to the WWF/E, when his time with G.I. Joe was over, he sure did betray America.
You're right.
Go to Iraq.
You're right, and I can't even argue that.
True.
Yeah,
he became an Iraqi sympathizer and betrayed everything that G.I. Joe stands for. So that's a good point. It doesn't quite sway me, but it does. It gives me a think. I've got to sit here and have a think. And I'd like to also say for the listeners, we would love to hear your input on Slaughter or Nodder. You can hit us up on Twitter at G.I. Joe Audible. All right, Noel.
You have both made very salient points. And I came into this, and the reason why I was judging this is because Sergeant Slaughter to me has always been a take it or leave it kind of guy. I had the Triple T version of Sergeant Slaughter as a kid. I never did get the mail away. I never did have the Warthog. So he was there. I played with him more as a wrestling figure probably than as a G.I. Joe figure. I thought that, and neither one of you mentioned the one thing that made me hate Sergeant Slaughter the most back in the day, which was him using his little fingers, his little pinky fingers, fingernail to unscrew a screw on a prison cell.
Dude, I'll tell you right now.
Even at 12, my suspension of disbelief just went out the window.
I have shaken hands with enough wrestlers to know that they've got these thick, gnarly, messed up fingers, and that there's a good chance a wrestler fingernail could function as a flathead screwdriver.
But I will say,
scary.
Based on these arguments, I see a bit of the Wolverine problem, but I don't think that he was prolific enough because it was a team effort. I also think that, yes, the fact that he was kind of unstoppable, that Dave alluded to being one of his pluses, is a little bit over the top too. So I am kind of in the middle in there. I think the thing that swayed me the most, though, I think it swayed you too, Dave, those Marauders.
Damn
so I gotta go no on that.
Oh no. So let me ask you this though. If the Marauders had reflected the original not the mail away figure, but the Triple T figures, black and camo color scheme, would we have a different outcome here?
Probably.
And how awesome would that have been?
As I said last month, if they had just stuck with the colors of the vehicles for Slaughter's Marauders, we'd have no problem, because those are beautiful.
Yeah.
No, between that and the Iraqi sympathizer thing, I think I got a last minute sway into the opposite direction, because I was leaning pro Slaughter there for a while, but he did ask for his country back, but still.
Well, as always, we must accept the judge's final decision. Therefore, Sergeant Slaughter must be forever banished from G.I. Joe continuity of the word of Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast.
I tell you what,
at least until next month.
I'll make a compromise with you, since I have been the most outspoken anti-Sergeant Slaughter. He has to hang outside the pit. He can't quite come inside. But the Marauder outfit's got to go.
Well, you know what? We don't know he ever went into the pit.
Well,
because the only time we ever saw him in the comic, he was in the motor pool, and that was it.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
He may have never set foot in there.
And even in the Sunbow cartoons, he was kind of a separate operative. Like the Joes that couldn't get it together got sent to him, but he was way out in, I don't even know where he was, somewhere where you have to throw Falcon out of an airplane to get
somewhere where there's no sewing machines.
Except for the one episode where they actually acknowledge him as the fifth in command of G.I. Joe, and even I rolled my eyes back then.
Yeah. But we are absolutely 100% in agreement that we can eject all of those Marauders uniforms, because those are horrendous. All right, it is time, having settled that once and for all, it is time to move on to our next segment. Welcome to Knowing is Half the Babble, where we each get a certain amount of time to ramble about anything that we want. I am going to kick it off this time because I am a big, giant, stupid, dumb head and have already broken the rule that I set in stone on the last episode that I was only going to buy stuff that I owned when I was a kid. What led me to break this rule was this new lot of GI Joes that I got. There were a few Joes in there that I didn't have when I was a kid. And also, Noel, you brought up an excellent website that I think is no longer being updated, but it's called joeaday.com. Very entertaining site where it lives up to its name. Every day there's a new GI Joe, and I think he started it in 2011 and ran up through maybe 2019.
Yeah, 2018 or 2019. It was a good 7 or 8 years.
So I've been visiting that site, and as I go along, I keep seeing figures from the 90s that, you know, by then I was out of GI Joe big time, but every once in a while a figure will pop up that just something about it is pleasing to me. And he reviewed this Inferno character that's a Cobra flamethrower operative, and it's this bright orange and silver. It's got the head is almost reminiscent of Cobra Commander, but it has a red faceplate with an orange helmet, and there's this scaled texture on the arms and legs. Just a really, really cool looking figure. And I saw it, and I was like, man, I wonder how much those sell for on eBay. I hit up eBay. I got one for $20 shipped, and I love it. And the cool thing is the seller also had a Storm Shadow version 2 that was just dirty, didn't have all the accessories, but this lot that I got had all of the Storm Shadow version 2 accessories, but no figure. So I threw that in as well. The shipping was combined, so I got these 2 figures in a lot. Storm Shadow cleaned up beautifully, so I now finally have a vintage Storm Shadow, and I've got this Inferno. And I also ordered the Stalker version 2 because all of his accessories were in this lot, but no figure. So I've already broken my stupid rule that I thought I was going to stick to, and clearly I'm not.
Let me tell you, as one of your oldest friends, if you had not purchased that lot of stuff and just passed that by, I would have come and physically thrashed you at that price. Because
there was no way I wasn't going to buy that lot of stuff. So that almost doesn't count towards what I'm talking about. But
no, if you find something like that, the rules go by the wayside. You have to
get it. It doesn't matter what's in there. But the problem was I looked and I was like, oh, well, all of that Stalker's accessories are in there. I guess I just need to get that Stalker figure. And then it's that kind of stuff that'll get you every time when you're an insane toy collector like myself. Noel, what are you going to babble about this month?
So I was just poking around Facebook Marketplace, which I do quite often while I'm just sitting around bored. I'm trying to cultivate the algorithm to just point all the things that I want. It's mainly like mid-century modern furniture, but occasionally a G.I. Joe thing slips through there. So I just happened upon this, and it was like a complete set of 1987 G.I. Joe trading cards.
Ooh.
For $10.
Nice.
And so I went and I purchased this thing, and I'm doing a visual aid for those who are in our room right now. It's a complete set of these, and they're I don't know if you're familiar with these. They were kind of like I was kind of aware of them, and I know they did a few different series. But this one is it's from '87. It's got a total of 57 cards, I believe. That 57th one is the checklist. And these are in fantastic condition. Like, they are almost perfect. I put them in my little card sleeves, along with all the finest trading cards I have. But I was just kind of gobsmacked at some of the choices they have here. It's art from the original Marvel comics. They start off with, you got Cobra Commander in the 87 the 87 armored. You got Destro, and then you've got Leatherneck. He's number 3. By the 8th card, you have Colonel Rattenkov from the October Guard. I don't even remember that character from October Guard.
No, I don't either.
No, they've got so you got Outback, you've got some that are just like, group shots, like action shots from the series. There's one called Mission Accomplished. But if you can if you can find these, like, I just looking around, it looks like the complete sets are not that hard to come by. At fairly reasonable rates. I've never seen one for this cheap, so it's really cool. If you do any kind of like collecting, like some of my favorite shots, like if you remember the episode where the Crimson Twins first, or the issue where the Crimson Twins first debuted and they were on the roller coaster. One of my favorite shots of like Flint leaping down on I believe it was Zaymot. Some great artwork from the comic. So check those out if you
hold those up one more time so I can nab a screenshot for the Instagram.
Ooh.
And that's good.
You know what they remind me of? You said these came out in 1987?
These were 87, but they also had series that came out in like 91, and they were the same publisher that put them out. I think they were Tops.
Okay, because not the first two editions of the Marvel Comics trading cards, but they did specialized ones, right? Of X-Men, X-Force, where they pulled images directly from the comics. It is the exact same layout with the white border, where they've pulled just the characters and then eliminated the background artwork and just put in like a gradient. So, because I was like, oh my gosh, wait, I had those. And then I'm like, no, those are G.I. Joe.
Yeah, they're
interesting.
Yeah, I have seen the other ones too. As a matter of fact, when I was kind of looking for information on these, and it's been a couple months since I bought these. I was going to bring them up last month, but I changed my course on my Half the Babble. But I was looking at some of the other things that got released. This was another one of my favorite images. It's the Cobra flag being planted on Cobra Island. Another one from the comics there. Yeah, so it's really, really cool stuff.
That's awesome. I love, we focus on the toys and the comics and the cartoon, obviously, but I love that kind of tertiary stuff that got out there as well, because there's tons and tons of other licensed product that's really cool that just doesn't get quite as much attention. And trading cards, late 80s, early 90s were huge. The Marvel trading cards in the early 90s, oh my gosh, that's some of my favorite art ever, because that was kind of your reference stuff almost.
Yep.
All right, Christian, babble away.
Okay, so with all the inspiration I had from putting together CoverGirl, I have been doing a lot more web searching for custom items for G.I. Joe, kind of branch out from the Star Wars and Master stuff that I do. And I wanted to see what kind of custom figures people make and sell. And I'm not going to say the seller's name. If you're listening, sorry you brought this on yourself. But on eBay, there is someone who when you read the description, it is custom Baroness or custom Scarlet boob. Where he's taken G1 figures.
Hang on. Wait, just a moment. I would just like to say that Christian's thoughts and opinions do not necessarily reflect those of Audible Interlude and G.I. Joe podcast. If you are a fan of this individual's work, and I have seen it online enough to know that there is a large fan base for this particular product. We love all G.I. Joe things here.
100%. Listen, I'm not shaming anybody. I think what made my jaw drop is this the reason for the scarcity of G1 Scarlets? Because these aren't like, or maybe they're repros, but every auction item I saw, it was a G1 version Baroness or a G1 version Scarlet. And I could not help but to think, how much stock does this person have in G1 Baronesses and Scarlets, and share some of that with the rest of the market out there,
I think
please.
He's just selling the torsos, right?
Yeah, I think it's just the custom torso that you can put on your figure.
The torso. And in Baroness's case, it is also the waist piece with an enhanced booty.
Oh, yeah. I didn't open the auction up. I just saw it and I just started laughing. And I was like, well, I'm not surprised this exists. Not by any stretch of the imagination, but I literally was saying, like, how many G1 Scarlets does this person have?
No, it's just the torso,
okay,
and waist, and I think maybe Lady J has a different head that's more Sunbow like. It doesn't have the hat.
Oh, I didn't see her.
And look, the craftsmanship is fantastic. The matching of the colors
I'll
seems
give
to be
them
fairly
that.
well done. For me, I want the aesthetics of the original figures intact, but people love custom stuff. People, people are fans of different things in GI Joe.
100%.
So
again, not shaming.
No,
not
shaming
at all.
Not at all.
And I wish I actually could see more people put their custom work.
I would love to see.
There.
I was watching some original 80s G.I. Joe commercials with the animation that was not from the actual cartoon earlier. And Gung Ho has like standard camo pants with the blue vest in the commercial. And granted, that's a custom you can do yourself. Like, you don't need anybody to make special parts for that. But I'd be interested if I ever end up with an extra Gung Ho, I'll probably make that look happen. I think that'll be cool. So yeah, I mean, stuff like that, I would be interested in seeing different custom parts. And again, going back to Dr. Venom, I'm dying to know what a lab coat in the 80s style is going to look like, because I don't see the vinyl cape situation being realistic, but I don't know what else you do.
Yeah, I don't. I keep thinking it would have been like a Dr. Mindbender situation.
I think it probably,
because Hasbro really did cloth more so than.
They did some soft goods, but I don't know that a soft goods lab coat because it would have to have the white plastic arms. I don't think well, I don't know though, because they made for Han Solo on Endor, they made a full coat for him.
But that was Kenner. But that was Kenner. I mean,
yeah, you're right.
So when I'm thinking,
at the time, that was a different company.
In my head, I'm going, I want a Dr. Venom. I don't know that they would have made him look exactly like the cartoon, though. I think there would have been some aesthetic changes for.
Yeah, I don't see them doing a full
the sculpting at the time.
I don't know. I'd be very interested to see how that would turn out.
Mm-hmm.
They would probably do something like they would mold on, I guess, make it like it's a longer coat and maybe have it come down a little bit on his waist. I don't know, because it
would be like a short lab coat.
Yeah, like maybe not going down to his knees like a full lab coat would.
Right. I could see that. That's probably the most likely thing. Well, there you go. And again, if you listeners, if you have thoughts about how that Dr. Venom might come about, hit us up, G.I. Joe Audible on Twitter, and of course, follow Audible Interlude Podcast on Instagram. All of our music is by Andy Samford of electricminnowmusic.com. Christian, where can we find your fine work on Instagram?
You can find my photos on Instagram and on Flickr.com under Legion Cub.
And Noel, where can we find you in the finest?
You can find me at dorkdroppings.com. Very rarely updated, but it's out there if you want to look for 25 years worth of content. And you can hopefully be finding the finest at more conventions coming up soon. I know that there will be some representation at Joe Fest coming up here in June. I don't know whether or not our garrison is specifically going to be doing some stuff there. It's just going to depend on when people can get shots in their arms. So go do that, because let's all get out of this and be able to have fun conventions together again very soon.
And you can find the occasional G.I. Joe review on the Needless Things YouTube channel. And of course, all of the Needless Things products at needlessthingspodcast.com. Thank you guys for sitting down and talking G.I. Joe. Thank you, listeners, for listening to us talk G.I. Joe. And until next time, yo, Joe.
Cobra.
You have been listening to a Needless Things podcast. You can follow Needless Things on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and at needlessthingspodcast.com. Love you. Mean it. Uh-huh.